Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back.
Howdy, howdy.
So today we are doing something pretty neat. We have gotten with S&S Motorsports, which is one of the leading injection pump, injector, and basically hot rod diesel developers of fuel system components that's around today. I think they're probably top of the line.
I was going to say that. Yeah, they're the best.
Today we're working on Jared Taylor of Black Rifle Coffee's 2021 F350 with a 6.7 Power Stroke in it. And because it's got a 6.7 Power Stroke in it, that means it's got a
CP4
junk. So we partnered up with S&S. If you don't know who S&S is, you need to go check them out. If you drive a Duramax, you drive a Power Stroke, or you drive a Cummins, S&S Diesel makes injection pumps, injectors, all the components that it takes to make either your factory truck run like it's supposed to, all the way back to an LB7. They offer a really nice injector for the early Duramax, all the way up to late model Power Stroke. And it's, like I said, pumps, injectors, all the stuff in between. You have everything that it takes to take your factory CP4 out and put in this new improved injection pump. So the problem with these trucks with LMLs and Power Strokes is that since the CP4 came out, it's had nothing but problems. And the majority of guys can get a couple 100,000 miles without an issue, but there's also a large portion of people who end up with catastrophic failure. And so the injection pump ends up coming apart because of a flawed design inside the injection pump itself, allowing metal debris to be pumped into the fuel rails and on into the injectors and the fuel tank, and it requires a complete fuel system replacement. Some of y'all might be thinking, well, I don't need all them hot rod parts. I just drive my truck around. I'm not a drag racer. How many times have you heard that? I'm not trying to race.
A bunch. And then he's on the side of the road 6 months later and he ain't racing nobody.
The truth is that if you own a 6.7 Power Stroke, this is probably the most unreliable part of the entire thing.
Yes, without a doubt.
Nice trucks, all that's great. You spend good money on it, and then you're cruising down the road, and bam, you're done. You're dead in the water instantaneously. You drag it to a shop, and they tell you you're looking at $10, $12 plus thousand dollars to fix it. We got to replace everything, and that's what this kit is going to fix. And the best part about it is that they send you all of the hard lines and everything that it takes, put it right in the factory location, and you don't have to reflash the ECM. It doesn't require custom tuning at all. This is a plug and play kit.
It's a cheap insurance policy to do now compared to once it packs everything full of metal and you have your camper and you're 1,000 miles from home.
Exactly. And this kit, you're probably wondering, what is this kit worth? These sell for around $2,000.
That won't even cover the tow bill of your truck and camper to get you back home.
Exactly.
You know,
and not to mention, if you're in the middle of nowhere, you got to try to trust somebody or some dealer that you've never been to put your CP4 stuff on your truck. And depending on, the quality of work that's going to happen there, you may end up with other issues. This injection pump just happens to move more fuel than a CP4. So if you have, say, emissions present tuning and you wanted to make a little bit of power and maybe you needed a little bit more fuel volume, or you want to step up your injector a little bit, this injection pump will support it. These things run really, really well on a truck that already runs good from the factory. So that's just an added bonus, not to mention considerably more reliable. And I mean, dude, for the money, it's the best bang for the buck. You take
an insurance plan and you get power. I mean,
when does that ever happen?
It never happens.
Yeah. So S&S also sends a really nice colored and very well illustrated and what the f are the words that you say? S&S also sends a really nice colored instruction manual that details all the tools that are required, and really nice instructions, man. The factory part numbers for anything that you're touching, if you need replacement gaskets or O-rings, a detailed list of what the components are, what you need to do as far as remove and install to go through the whole operation. Bottom line, they make this thing so easy, even Steven can do it.
Yeah.
Okay guys, so we've got torn down all the way to where you can see the injection pump. So I'm gonna go over a couple things with you. And this is the CP4, this is the injection pump. You're gonna have to pull the high pressure lines off and get everything that's connected to the injection pump off and out of your way. You don't have to remove the EGR cooler to do it. You can take the crossover line that runs under the cooler over to that rail, to the driver's side rail, and if you get that thing loosened up on both sides and the brackets released, you can actually pick this piece up and kind of work it out this side and work the new line in as well. So you don't have to pull the EGR cooler off to do this. You have an adapter plate that's going to install, it's going to bolt from the back and eliminate the studs altogether, and then your new DCR pump is going to fasten to that adapter plate that has the flange where the original CP4 was. It's got a piece that bolts on to adapt the two different bolt patterns of the injection pump. You need to make sure that you've got your timing marks lined up. You've got a 1 and a 2 down here, 1 on the cam, 2 on the driven gear that drives the pump, and this hub that drives the vacuum pump on the front. A lot of times the vacuum pump gasket on the front likes to leak, so you're kind of knocking out a few things at one time. Another thing to look at while you're down in any Power Stroke is all the coolant stuff, like anything that feeds the turbo, your upper radiator hose. A good way to check them is to kind of just wiggle, and you'll see them leak out of the thermostat housing, like the top side. They're pretty prone for leaking here. The Aluma-Duties seem to do a little bit better job than the earlier trucks, but it's definitely something that while you're down here, it's, you know, all those repairs are easier to do. So if you have any miles on your truck, I recommend buying like an O-ring kit. You can buy a box of O-rings. I think Napa sells an O-ring kit for it, and it's got quite a few O-rings so that you can just pull this guy off, rotate it over, use a pick, pull the O-ring out, size it to the new one in the kit, and install it while you're there. It's just worth taking a mirror and a flashlight and just looking over everything that you've got while you're here, because you're already down in here. So maybe you got to run to the parts store and get you a few different things, but it's definitely time well spent while you're down in this thing. That way you can work your way out, making sure you're taking care of everything on the way out. You also want to check the turbo anytime that you're in a Ford. You also want to check the turbo. You just want to see that the compressor wheel looks like it's supposed to, that everything spins like it should. This one spins like a champion. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. These are much more resilient. On the 2015 and up trucks, they are way more resilient turbo side than the 11 to 14s, but I've seen them all have issues, so definitely worth looking at. Obviously, you're gonna wanna inspect the seals on your intake manifold where the upper plenum bolts to these pieces here that run down to the cylinder head. It's actually part of the valve cover, but the intake on a 6.7 Power Stroke is on the outside and the exhaust is actually in the middle. So check all that stuff, make sure your O-rings are good. A lot of time you can reuse them, but if you see any wear at all, or if it left any material behind from the rubber, like it tore just the surface of it, it's just a good idea to replace them. They don't cost that much money. Another thing is to take a mirror and look at, go at the back of the exhaust manifold with a flashlight and a mirror and see if you've got a leak on the very back corners of the exhaust manifolds. It definitely takes more work. You'd have to pull the turbo and stuff like that to access it, but again, while you're here, you definitely just want to inspect that. Try not to touch any of these fasteners that come off the manifold unless you absolutely have to. There, the EGR cooler, any of that stuff. The less of that you touch, the less broken bolts you're going to have to repair. For the most part, they don't like to give up without fight, and by fight I mean break off in the hole. You don't want to do that. So anyway, Logan's going to keep going. He's going to pull the injection pump out, get these lines and stuff out. I'll fire up the camera and show you some of the removal of the line, pulling that stuff out, and then we'll get the install of the plate and the injection pump going in so y'all can see that this isn't a huge deal. We're going to keep going.
plate installed in the truck. Now it's time to put the pump back in. But before you do that, you have to time this pump. You're going to see the one dimple right here. You're going to put that guy at 6 o'clock. Now when the pump goes in, the pump's going to rotate and sit like that, and it's going to put that guy at 7. Because there's no keyway, once the pump sets in there, your dial's at 7 o'clock, your gear's going to go directly on, and your pump's going to be in time. Slide right in. It's going to take a little force. You're going to feel it pop in. We're ready to torque our pump to our adapter plate. We're going to put the pump gear back on, and then we're going to go into putting lines back in.
All right, so we have the injection pump installed, and this is, like I was saying before, it's plug and play. So you're gonna plug the factory FCA connector in, no big deal. This is your supply and return fuel to the injection pump. It lays in, same attachment, single 10mm bolt, same quick connects and all that. Putting the vacuum pump assembly back on the front side. You gotta make sure that the timing marks are lined up. Follow the instructions to the T, read it 2 or 3 times, make sure you're paying attention to what's going on so that the pump is phased correctly with the motor. Vacuum pump keys into this guy, new gasket provided, bolt that thing up, and you're coming back out the same way. At this point, it all comes back out the same way, or goes back together the same way that it came out. Turn the key, let it prime, fire it up, rock and roll. Okay guys, so it's truck number 2. We've got Jarrett from Black Rifle knocked out. Now it's time to knock out Matt Carricker. And I just don't think we're gonna film it, guys. It's like, I'm not gonna show you all the exact same thing twice. We had Logan knock out the first one. We got Jake Steak over here knocking out the second one. Let me show Jake real quick. Come on, dude. Get in there, Jake. How you doing, dude? What do you got to say for yourself?
He's a proud Duramax owner.
Woo!
Buy a 6.4.
Oh, dude.
Wow. Okay, we need to edit that out.
Yeah, no, straight up. So today, Jake Steak, Jakey, he's gonna get down on a DCR pump kit, just like the one that we just got done. You can see who it's for. Thank you and good night. You really need to make sure that you're putting one of these kits on your trucks. If you're stranded on the side of the road with an exploded CP4, that may be the least of your problems. I've seen CP4s lock up, break in half, and actually twist the crank drive gear, and then you've got real big problems because now you're making valves touch pistons and your injection system's trash. It's just not the way to do it, man.
I've seen grown men walk with their family because their injection pump failed.
Bro, not good.
So,
Not good. Here's Demolition Matt's dually. Pretty slick truck. We have done basically no work to this thing up to this point, but y'all know how Matt is. He can ruin anything, which is another reason why we have twisted his arm into putting a DCR kit on it. So we're extremely thankful for the guys at S&S for taking care of Black Rifle and Demo Matt. So we're gonna get this thing knocked out, and then we'll talk to you guys here in a minute. This morning I'm test driving Matt Carricker's truck, and so far so good. This is the second or third test drive on this thing. First test drive for me, and checked over it several times. There's no leaks. Everything looks good. Just kind of being redundant about making sure that whenever he comes to pick it up, he's not going to have an issue. It's pretty typical for us to test drive stuff more times than it's worth, because a lot of times when you're working on cars, you guys, if you own a shop and you're watching this, or if you work on cars in general, you know how it is. If you know, you think something's good and then you take off, it always has a problem. It seems like it anyway. So we usually test drive them to death and try to make sure that it's as solid as it can be before it leaves and you give it back to the customer. But I was thinking about something. You're probably wondering, you know, what does something like this DCR conversion kit cost? It's right around $2,000, give or take. Depends on who you're buying it from and, you know, what their margin is and stuff like that. But you can expect to pay around $2,000. You're gonna have some tax and stuff like that. And if you're taking it to a shop, there's gonna be some shop supplies, you know, to clean the diesel off the valve cover when you pull a line off. You're gonna need some brake clean and some miscellaneous stuff. And if you're dealing with somebody who's trying to be professional, then they're going to take care of every one of the little Christmas tree clips and zip tie the stuff back up, and make sure all your clamps are tight and stuff like that. So you're gonna have a few dollars in miscellaneous. And as far as labor goes, it's going to vary depending on where the shop is and stuff like that. But you can expect to pay about the same in labor. It's a job that if you hustle hard and you've done a couple of them, you can do it realistically in about 4 to 6 hours, depending on how familiar you are with doing a job like this. But for the average guy, you need to bank on it taking you about a day, and you want it to take about a day because you want to take your time and do a good job. If you bought a truck like this one that Matt has, these trucks aren't cheap. A lot of these nicer trucks with the higher trim level package and stuff like that, they're $100,000. And the thing about it is, as nice as the truck is, you don't want to be stranded on the side of the road with an injection pump failure, and not all the time will the dealer stand behind it. You also have to consider that if the injection pump fails on a truck like this, you have to replace the entire fuel system. Tank, sometimes the tank. Not always. Sometimes you can just clean the thing out. Usually if you get def in the tank, we just replace it from the filler neck forward. But at a minimum, you're doing a disaster kit, which involves an injection pump, both rails, a full set of injectors, the fuel cooler, both fuel filters. You got to at least flush the lines, if not replace them. It's a ton of labor. You just don't want to do that, and that can cost you 10, 12, 15,000 bucks. Depends on where you are in the country and who you know, and your brother's uncle's buddy's going to give you costs at the dealer on parts. It doesn't matter. Your truck's going to be down, and it's not going to run any better than it did when you put it back together. So for 10 or 12 grand, wouldn't you rather spend $4,000, give or take, and put a DCR pump on it, and then have 5 or 6 grand left over to do something cool like wheels and tires or anything else? Go on a vacation, treat yourself to something because you were smart enough to take care of your investment before it failed. Something to consider. All right, guys, we're here with Matt. Here you go, brother.
Thanks. Yeah. What did you guys do? It's the same.
Yeah. No, we basically didn't do anything. We just charged you a bunch of money. No, we took the CP4 off, which we were telling you is like a catastrophic failure thing, and we put what's called a DCR pump on it, and it's really like the #1 failure point on a Ford. It happens to make a little bit more power.
Does it really?
It does.
Sweet.
Yeah, that pump moves like 15% more
We're
fuel.
going faster now.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna put this in the burnout competition.
Dude, you ready to rock and roll, dude? So.
Sweet.
Guaranteed reliability.
Yes, sir.
I'll be back. Earl's dead.
Damn.
Yeah. I actually was gonna drive it here, but it didn't have enough boost to even get here. It was just black smoke, couldn't spool up.
Not good.
So we're gonna trailer it up here with that thing probably this week.
I think Earl probably needs a turbo, man. I think it's the original turbo that's on it,
Yep.
isn't it? Yeah.
It might be.
How many miles are on Earl now?
It's
Oh.
over 200. I don't know though.
Okay.
Yeah, buddy.
Okay, dude. Well, I wish we had more cool shit to talk about, but we don't, so edit that out. Thanks, Matt. See you later, dude.
Later. Thank you.
2 guys knocked out. That's Black Rifle Coffee and Demolition Ranch. If that's not enough push for you to go and check out S&S Motorsports or to give someone like us a call or your local diesel shop, I don't know what else is going to help you.
Yeah, if you own a Ford, you don't have a DCR, you need to go whip your head into the ground because, that's what you need to do. That's what I mean. Do yourself a favor, save yourself money, and put a DCR on it.
No other answer.
No other answer.
Make Fords great again.
Yep.
All right, guys. Till next time. Thank y'all.
Adios.
Later.